Hey, what's up, fam? I hope you're good. Today we're going to be talking about the Mutapa Empire, better known as the Mwene Mutapa. So we're going to start with the origins, then we move to the political structure, then we move to the economic structure. You know the drill. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Origins of the Mutapa State. The founder of the Mutapa State was Nyatsimba Mutota, who left Great Zimbabwe in search of salt or after succession disputes according to oral history. King Chibatamatosi, Mutota's father, ordered Mutota to find salt before the succession disputes. Prince Mutota traveled north leading a large army of men around 300. Mutota went to the Zambezi Valley where he defeated some weak communities who were already settled there, such as the Tawara and the Torwa people. Mutota, as a result, earned the titles Munu Mutapa, Mwene Mutapa, Mono Mutapa, as praise names, which means Lord of the Conquering or Master of the Ravaged Lands. These titles have been used to name the state, but it has generally been accepted as the Mutapa State. Mutota built his capital at Zimbabwe on the slope of Chikato Hill near the Utete River. Part of this Zimbabwe remains to this day at the bottom of the escarpment north of Guruwe. Mutota formed an alliance with the Tawara high priest called Zivaguru. Upon the death of Mutota, his son Nyanewe Matope in 1415 took over and co-ruled with his half-sister Nyamita, who occupied the district of Handa. Hence, she is often referred to as Nyamita ne Handa. Matope ruled with his sister as he was still young, and the two ruled the Mutapa Empire stretching from the Angwa and Manyame River north to the Zambezi and west to the Msengezi and Mukumbura rivers. Now we're looking at the reasons for the rise of the state. The rise of the Mutapa State was coined by the factors that led to the decline of the Great Zimbabwe State, such as overpopulation, succession disputes, exhaustion of land and minerals, the inability of Great Zimbabwe to control other lineages, drought, and the rise of ambitious leaders. Some of the reasons which led to the rise of Mutapa State are the scarcity of resources such as salt, pastures at the Great Zimbabwe. It is believed that the Dande had a vast of salt deposit that enabled Mutota to establish the state, as salt was important in their diet. Succession disputes at Great Zimbabwe led to the rise of ambitious leaders such as Mutota, who fled to establish his own state. Population pressure at Great Zimbabwe forced people such as Mutota to move in search of resources, including land. The Dande area had fertile soils for agriculture and watery pastures for livestock. Availability of hunting grounds in Mutapa State attracted more people. It is believed that there was the availability of elephants in the Dande area, availability of gold and other minerals which were used for external trade, the cordial relations with foreigners, the role of the army who maintained peace in the state and punished rebels, the role of religion which made people loyal to the Mutapa. The economic system of the Mutapa State. The economic system of the Mutapa State had three pillars. These were agriculture, trade, and mining. The Mutapa people mined gold, iron, and copper. Copper was used for making jewelry and for trade. Iron was mined mainly for making iron tools for use by the Mutapa people in farming, hunting, or for war. Gold was for making jewelry and for trade with the Swahili and with the Portuguese, and it was mined at Chikoa. The demand was so high that even the king began to demand tribute in the form of gold and other goods obtained through trade with Swahili and Portuguese. They practiced alluvial mining due to the simple iron tools they used. The mining was also laborious and dangerous activity. It was difficult to drain out water from the mines during the rainy seasons or upon reaching the water table. Traditionally, people used to mine during the dry seasons, but the Swahili and Portuguese forced people to mine in summer because of their increased demand for gold. This affected the activity, especially farming. Also in need to get more gold, the Swahili and Portuguese entered the Mutapa and began to interfere with the Mutapa politics. They caused confusion in the state, resulting to the weakening and decline of the state. Agriculture. The soil was very fertile, and main crops grown were rapoko, millet, and sorghum. The invention of iron tools allowed the clearing of larger fields and permanent crop production. Products from agriculture were paid as tribute to the king and given as food handouts to the subjects in times of droughts. They also domesticated cattle for milk and for hides and for meat as well. Cattle were a symbol of wealth and were slaughtered on special occasions. Hunting. Hunting was a traditional practice as it was a source of meat and hides for clothing and trade. They hunted for both small and big animals. They used iron spears, arrows, and knob carriers. The dog was an important hunting animal. They also used nets, mambure, and fiber string snares for trapping animals. Hunting was a man's activity, and even the Mutapa hunted on some occasions. Hunting became more trade-oriented with increasing demand for ivory and skins. Men were required to pay tribute in the form of precious skins and ivory. This was a dangerous activity, but the people were compelled by the tribute credit obligations to take the risk. Hunting was also done for leisure. Tribute payment. The Mutapa, like most African states, charged a loyalty tribute on its subjects, which was the only way the Mutapa king could realize who was under his control and who had to be attacked. It was a way to measure the extent of his authority. Every family had to pay tribute to the king through the village head. The villages then paid through the sub-chiefs, who in turn paid through the chiefs and provincial rulers. The defeated vassal chiefdoms had to pay tribute to the king. Examples of these included the kings of Utewe, Barwe, and Manika. Custom, lifestyle, and beliefs of the Mutapa people. The people had the same Shona language, customs, and culture similar to the people of the Great Zimbabwe State. The term Shona was used until the 19th century by colonialists. The cultural level of the society was closely knit, with family being the nucleus of the society as well as being the foundation of the nation. There was a low degree of morality with crime, starvation, delinquency, prostitution, and divorce. The law was highly developed to deal with cultural customs and building a wholesome, obedient citizen. Murderers, thieves, and lawbreakers were not severely punished but corrected in line with the law, seeking to reconcile the injured and the culprit and compensate the victim or his relatives in the case of murder. When a person was murdered, the deceased had to be replaced with usually a young woman from the murderer's family had to be given to the victim's family. This formed a union between the two families. They believed in a god whom they called Nwari, the sky god. He was communicated to through the spirits of the ancestors and through medium of a mondoro. Religious ceremonies were held to honor the spirit mediums, where music, dancing, and feasting occurred, which was called Biraguru. The chief spirit mediums were Dzivaguru in the northeast, Nehanda in the central, and Chaminuka in the west. The state practiced division of labor based on gender, with women doing cooking, gathering of fruits, as well as rearing of the children. Men were responsible for mining, hunting, as well as state defense. The state's wealth was based on cattle and land. The Mutapa people were divided into three castes: the rich, the middle, and the low class. The state also practiced lobola or rora, which is the payment of the bride's family. This was paid in form of cattle or other iron implements. The political organization of the Mutapa State. The king or Mambo led the state and had many advisors and sub-chiefs to assist him in governing the state. These were aristocratic officials, territorial kings, and chiefs who were part of the royal line and were well trusted. The army general was known as Tumbari, and he was the king's right-hand man. He led the state at the death of the king. The king was the head of the judicial, military, and religious affairs of the state. He was in charge of all communal land, and therefore everything in the state was regarded as his, whether it was cattle, ivory, grain, and war captives, among others. The royal wives were also regarded as officials and powerful. Mutapa's wives and officials wore expensive jewelry and clothes made from cotton and silk. A large army maintained, which traveled long distances patrolling, collecting tribute and cattle, and brought new communities into the empire. Tribute was used to maintain the king's control of the state and used as a way to pay homage and loyalty to the king. Since the king and his ruling class were in control of long-distance trade, they also received annual tribute from the Swahili and Portuguese. The foreigners would pay tribute in the form of luxury goods and ornaments. This was meant to show respect to the king, and in return they would be allowed free passage into the state for trading purposes. In times of drought, the king would feed the nation from his royal granary, Sundera Mambo. The Mutapa had a royal fire which was to be kept burning at all times as a sign of his everlasting authority. The kingship was hereditary and a collateral system was used, from father, first son, to second son, and third son. The king also presided over rituals such as rainmaking and spirit appeasement ceremonies, as well as enchantments before going to war. This showed his superior divine power and a source of inspiration. All this helped to rule the state with very little opposition or rebellion. They practiced a system of leasing which aimed at giving poor people milk, but politically it aimed at strengthening the king's dominion. This was known as Ronzera or Ukusisa system. Portuguese interference within the Mutapa State. The Portuguese were not satisfied with the gold they got from the Mutapa people through trade. The Portuguese sent an emissary called Antonio Fernandes to the Mutapa State in 1513, and he reported on abundant gold deposits. They sent other emissary and resulted with the same conclusion, which urged them to establish trading ports. The Mutapa asked for the permanent representative of the Portuguese, who was to be entitled captain of the gates and represent the Mutapa and the Portuguese relationship. The first captain of the gate was Fernando de Promca, and Musapa was entitled great wife. The Portuguese also brought Father Gonçalo da Silveira, who converted Mutapa king and his subjects to Christianity. The new king, Mutapa Negomo, ordered the execution of Silveira and other converted Christians to be thrown into the Msengezi River. After the death of Da Silveira, the Portuguese king Sebastian sent a troop of 1,000 men to colonize the Zambezi Valley. The failure by the Mutapa king to control gold in the state led to Portuguese interference in the Mutapa politics. They helped Nyambo Kapararidze to power, and he refused to follow their demands. The Portuguese hence used their private army called Chikundas to install Mavura Mande, who went on to grant concessions to them. The Portuguese installed their puppet leaders and ruled everyone, including the trade. They built schools, churches, and taught the Africans. After the death of Mavura Mande, the Portuguese enjoyed the Prazo system. The Prazo system. The Prazo system was the control of the Mutapa land by the Portuguese. The Prazo system introduced new agriculture and mining activities. New crops such as maize, sweet potatoes, pawpaws, groundnuts, and melons were introduced. The Portuguese firstly paid tribute to the Mutapa king called Keva, but eventually the Mutapa people were subjects to the Portuguese. Those who failed to pay the tribute were forced to work in Prazo's land. They installed the Vashambadzi as professional traders. The Portuguese activities exploited the Africans, and it eventually led to the decline of the Mutapa State. Decline of the Mutapa State. The Mutapa State is believed to be the longest and last-standing empire before the entrance of the whites. Factors which led to the downfall of the state are as follows. State size. At its peak, it is believed that the Mutapa Empire stretched from the eastern borders of Mozambique to the fringes of the Kalahari in the west. It was a vast size that made it difficult for the state to be ruled by one leader. As such, the political power of the Mutapa was only theoretical in far areas such as Manica, Tete, and Bire. Breakaway factions. As the result was now too large, the lack of one political unit allowed smaller tributary chiefs to be able to rebel against paying tribute and homage to the Mutapa king. This led to the decline of the state as areas such as Manica and Tete declared independence from the Mutapa Empire with assistance of Portuguese agents. Political disputes. The battle for kingship in the Mutapa Empire fueled factionalism and broke state unity. Some notable battles included Gatsuru Sere against the Marawi people, It was this clash that ultimately led to the Portuguese invasion, who capitalized on the weakness of the political structure in the state. Depletion of resources. The Mutapa State was largely founded on resources such as land for agriculture and cattle for rearing, as well as ivory and gold for trade. As such, the rapid exhaustion of these resources led to livelihood declining within the state. It is important to note that the depletion of these resources was largely due to Portuguese interference. This forced native people to migrate, search for greener pastures. The coming of the Portuguese into the state severely led to the state's downfall. The Portuguese affected the state economically, socially, and politically. From the introduction of Christianity, installing of puppet kings or rulers, as well as the introduction of credit and prazo systems. All these activities crippled the livelihood and efficiency of the Mutapa State. As such, life became unbearable, and most people fled from the state, while powerful leaders such as Changamire Dombo went on to form powerful states.